Buddy, welcome into another edition of To The Point. Hope you all enjoyed night one of the NHL draft last night. It was interesting for a couple of different reasons, and I'll have thoughts on all of that today. But it was always great to see the kids getting drafted, go to their respective teams, some shock picks, which is always fun to see. And of course, there are players that you like, you dislike more than others, so I'll have thoughts on that. There's some other moves in the NHL yesterday, in particular in Vegas, a move that I particularly like, and some UFC news that Dana White dropped last night. And we also got a perfect game in Major League Baseball. Domingo Germán throws a perfect game in Oakland. It was late last night if you missed it, but only the 24th time in the history of baseball was there a perfect game. So pretty special night in Oakland. And there isn't too many special nights in Oakland anymore because that ballpark is a disaster and the team is just as bad as the players who play on the field. But the NHL draft, overall, I mentioned this last week with the NBA draft. I don't think the coverage of the draft is all that good. The panel for Sportsnet, it was okay. David Amber is the host. He's always great. Cosentino's on there. I like him. He's too nice about every prospect. That's one thing I don't like about these drafts is every prospect's a great person and every prospect's going to be a home run. That's just not the case. Find the fault in people, okay? That's the job. That's what scouts are supposed to do. But, this guy's going to have upside. This guy's going to be great. Okay. I guess I have to stick to the negative Nancy lane, but I'll happily do that because it's the world of reality. But my first thought last night when Connor Bedard was selected by the Chicago Blackhawks was no surprise. We knew it was happening for a month and change now since Chicago won the draft lottery. My first thought when I saw him put on the jersey and the hat is I had forgotten that Fanatics is the new partner with the NHL. They now own the rights to all the memorabilia, to the apparel for the National Hockey League. They paid many millions of dollars to get it. They took it from Adidas. And they might have paid more than Adidas, but the hats, and if you haven't seen them, go back and look at them. Google it. It's worth a Google to go look because these hats are beyond ugly. That was my first thought, is this apparel is garbage. The sport that does the worst job at marketing their players, that marketing their product, is going to be a shit sandwich when it comes to marketing just their teams. The Arizona Coyotes jerseys are ugly enough. Seeing the whole crew from Arizona come up dressed in the same suit was ugly enough. But seeing the poor bastards that had to put on that jersey, Dmitry Simashev, when he was picked sixth, when the whole world was shocked, including him, those jerseys with the hat might be the most ugly combination I've ever seen. But Fanatics as the new partner, it's not smart because it makes you look soft, makes your product look shit. It's not a great way to show off your sport, in my opinion. So that was my first thought was the Fanatics owning apparel is a bad thing for the league because it's ugly. Because they don't make high-end products. Adidas with their jerseys were very nice. Nike before them were nice too. It's only night one. Maybe it can get better, but you had all this time to produce hats, jerseys for the NHL draft, and you come up with that. I mean, it looks like you're making a movie, and it was low budget. Okay, we only have this. We have to save costs here. We can't shoot in LA. Let's shoot in Arizona. I don't know. We can't use great sound effects. We can't do this, that, and the third. So let's save money doing this stuff. But a pro sport that makes a lot of money and is one of the top 4 sports in the world to have a cheap product, to me, if you like the hats, let me know in the comments section. I just see every player get selected and they're ugly as shit. Ugly. There's nothing appealing about them. The logo is bad. There's like the Fanatics logo on the brim is ugly too. Oof. But that's Fanatics. I buy my NFL.com stuff on NFL.com because it's not Fanatics. You buy something on Fanatics, it's cheap. I've done it before. And it's a big brand, but they don't spend the money to make a nice product, in my opinion. And the Fanatics founder used to be a part owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. So he's got money. But they clearly found a lane where they can sell stuff for decently expensive and save money on costs. But when you got a huge brand like the NHL and you're producing these, woof, that's my first thought. Let's pivot to players, because I'm not a fashion expert by any means, but I just thought it looked amateur hour. Connor Bedard goes number 1. No surprise, a culmination for the next great player in the National Hockey League. Watched him many times over the last year and a half. Ultra skilled, incredible shot, gifted passer. He's improved his game a ton over the last year. And it was a no-brainer for Chicago. It was a no-brainer for over a year. That's whoever got the first pick, that's who they were going to take. And Chicago got Taylor Hall. They got Nick Foligno to add some veterans around him this season. He goes into a team where he will look to be the face of the franchise for the next 20 years. Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews are gone. Joel Quenneville, Stan Bowman, that era of Chicago is done. And what Kyle Davidson and Connor Bedard on the ice are trying to do is build something. Build a team that can get back to championship level. And whether it's fair or not, I think Connor Bedard will be compared to Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid's played 8 years in the NHL. He's not won a Stanley Cup. Is that his fault? No. He's been the best player in the world every year, basically, since he's entered the league. But he hasn't won. And it sticks with him. People remember you win all these Hart trophies, you win Ted Lindsay's, but if you don't have that Stanley Cup, then how good were you really? And I think that's where Connor Bedard will be compared. Sidney Crosby's got 3 rings. Alex Ovechkin got his 1 in Washington. Jonathan Toews has 3. So I think it's twofold. I think he'll be compared to Connor McDavid. I think he'll be compared in his new city to Toews and Kane, because they brought the city 3. They brought the city 3 titles in a 6-year span. And Jonathan Toews, for parts of that, was the best player in the world. Not many people have that opinion. I do. And Patrick Kane was right there. Toews won a Conn Smythe, yet Kane won a Conn Smythe, Duncan Keith won a Conn Smythe. They built a fantastic team that was dynasty-esque. Now, can Kyle Davidson do the same in Chicago with Connor Bedard? Well, I think Chicago's got two things that Edmonton doesn't. I think Chicago still is a destination that players covet. It still has that feel of being a championship city. Yes, Jordan hasn't played in Chicago since 1998, but it has that feel. It has that vibe. We just had Taves and Kane roll through and that dynasty. And can you do it again? Not to mention you have Connor Bedard, who is the next great player. So I could see players wanting to team up with Connor Bedard and playing with him. And you do it in Chicago. You don't have to go to Arizona. You don't have to go to the middle of nowhere. Chicago is an original six. They are a big city. It is popular. And they have great fans. They get good attendance. They have one of the best anthem singers in the league. They have a good arena. You got Bulls, Cubs, White Sox. I mean, it's a hockey city. It's a sports city in Chicago. The Bears, I mean, they got everything you'd want. So the team is nowhere close to being competitive. I mean, they're selecting number 1 overall. So they're here for a reason. But this is the first step in becoming competitive and being a team that others fear. So it'll be curious how they approach the next couple years. I think acquiring Taylor Hall was really smart. A guy that can be a mentor to Connor Bedard. Taylor Hall was a number 1 overall pick way back in the day. He's had his ups and downs in this league. He had a run in Edmonton where he was a really good player, but he wasn't winning, and the teams were awful, and they turned on him. And ultimately, Edmonton traded him in a trade that they regret for Adam Larson. But his tenure in Edmonton was average, to say the least, in my opinion. But then he goes to New Jersey, ends up winning a Hart Trophy, and he had a bounce back of his career. He was able to get $6 million a year from the Boston Bruins. So he's had his good moments and his bad moments, and I think that's the key for Taylor. It's not all going to be great. This Chicago team is going to lose a lot of games this year. They still have a lot of players that are American League type players, American Hockey League type players on this roster. They don't have a goalie yet on their roster that is NHL caliber. But Foligno's a veteran. He's been through wars. You bring in Taylor Hall. You have Connor Bedard. Seth Jones on the back end is a true professional. And he's still a very good player. So you do have some pieces. But do I predict a year from now that the Chicago Blackhawks will be picking in the top 5-6 in the 2024 NHL draft? I do. Because their team won't be good enough, and they need to. One of the best things to happen to McDavid was Draisaitl being picked number 4. Having the ability to have those two players on your roster, you drafted them both, and they were both home runs. It's why Edmonton is competitive every year, and it's why both of them have had fantastic careers, because they play with one another. They complement each other, and they're two of the best players in the world. Malkin and Crosby. Throw in Fleury there as well. You have those 3 guys drafted in the same timeline, and it completely changes the outlook of their franchise. Because you were bad for multiple years in order to get these players. Now you need to draft correctly, but if you do draft correctly, then you're cooking with propane. Toronto's turnaround. You get Matthews, you get Marner, you get Nylander in a 4-year span. It helps you. Now, they haven't won anything, like Edmonton, but you're at least competitive. You at least have players that are at the top of the sport. There are other ways to win. Tampa, you had Kucherov, who was a mid-first rounder. You had Vasilevsky, who went 18th. But Hedman was second overall. Stamkos was obviously first overall. It's hard to win when you don't have somebody that's at the top of the bill. Jack Eichel went second overall to Vegas. They had players on that roster. Shea Theodore was a first rounder. So you're stockpiling talent, and you're trying to put yourself in a position to win. And to me, that's what Chicago has to do. Put players around Connor Bedard this year that the team isn't completely pathetic. You can't be Colorado of a number of years ago when Patrick Waugh resigned and that team had something like 50 points that year. It was unprecedented how bad that Colorado team was. And it was a joke how bad they were. You can't have that when you already have the phenom on your team. But Bedard will be in the same division as Nathan MacKinnon. Those will be tough assignments. He'll play Robert Thomas in St. Louis. He'll go up against really good Dallas teams. So in his division, in the Central, he'll have some tough opponents. But if I'm Chicago in free agency, I want to sign a goalie that isn't Alex Stalock or he isn't Peter Mrazek, where it's just obvious you're tanking. I don't think they can have that approach going into this year. I think they can sign players and be adequate, but they still won't be great. But they'll just be good enough to make him happy and to give off the impression that we're trying here. Which they are and they aren't, because they don't want to be good again, because you need to get more highly touted prospects so you can move forward. But you also don't want to be a joke. So it's finding that balancing act for a team like Chicago where, Kirby Dach was traded to Montreal. A lot of the prospects that they had with Taves and Kane, they've moved out. We don't want them anymore. They're not the future of our team. It's completely, let's reset. Let's reset. Let's see what we can do. It starts with Connor Bedard, and we build from there, which is a good strategy to me. But I'm curious to see how they approach free agency and, the team that they put on the ice night one of the NHL season, because it was announced they're playing night one. I think they played the Penguins on the first night of the season. So it'll be Bedard and Crosby right away, which is interesting that they're already marketing him on night one, which is good. They should. Chicago's not going to be a great team, but have him play against the Penguins. I'm fine with that. Then I believe his first 4 games, he plays Crosby. Then he might be in Montreal on that Saturday night. And then he's in Toronto on Monday. That's good scheduling by the NHL. Get him in Canadian markets early. Get that buzz about him early. And he's playing in Chicago. That's not late night. Most of their games start at 9 o'clock. Atlantic. So he will be seen. He will be watched. He will be on TNT. He will be on the mothership a ton next season. In the big picture, it is better that Connor Bedard is in an American market. For every Canadian that hears that, you might say that's an incorrect opinion from me. If we're talking about marketing a sport, if as a collective, if we want hockey to continue to grow, playing in a Canadian market does not help the promotion of a sport. Connor McDavid playing for the Edmonton Oilers does not help the NHL, because the NHL has Canada by the cojones. Canada loves hockey. We know that. It's our sport. It's our pastime. It's not in markets in the States. Seeing Matthew Tkachuk light up Sunrise, that's a good thing. Vegas adopt hockey and love the sport. That's a fantastic thing. Connor Bedard playing in Chicago, getting eyeballs, being on national TV. Maybe somebody clicks it on ESPN, they see him play, and they go, oh my God, this kid's amazing. We got to keep watching hockey. That's what you're hoping to get. You won't get that if you have guys playing in Edmonton because it won't be on those stations. For a number of different reasons. Number one, they don't want to put Edmonton games on because it's in the United States. And number two, they don't get, it's basically TV points. When you broadcast a game, for instance, if you're wondering why the Blue Jays are never on Sunday Night Baseball, it's not because they're not a good team or not because they don't have interesting players. It's because the ratings numbers don't count in Canada. So if they put the Blue Jays on Sunday Night Baseball and they played the Yankees, they'd only get half the ratings numbers that would be the New York numbers. Every person who watched the game from Canada, if you watched that game on TSN, for instance, they wouldn't count. So that's why, and that's why there's so few Leafs games in the United States that are on TV. Playoffs, that's different. You take the hit. But that's why. If you were wondering, I didn't know this till about a couple years ago, but I heard it was really interesting sports business podcast, and they discussed it. So that's why. It's not because they don't want to put Canada on, or they have a vendetta against the Maple Leafs, or they have a vendetta against the Calgary Flames. It's because they want their ratings and they want their money to count, which I think we can all appreciate. I thought the draft was going to start at number 4. Because to me, it was obvious. Adam Fantilli was going to Anaheim. Leo Carlsson was going to Columbus. And then I don't know. Then it was completely wide open. What was I wrong? The Anaheim Ducks took Leo Carlsson out of Sweden. There was no rumors of this. No insider got a hunch. If anybody knew, they didn't leak it. And I appreciate that. I love genuinely being shocked. I was sitting there at Boston Pizza last night with my good friend Josh. We were having a cold Michelob Ultra and we're watching the draft. And I see Leo Carlsson come on the screen, and I couldn't believe it. There was no buzz about this. The only news we heard was that Jarmo Kekalainen said that Columbus was going to be taking a franchise-changing center. Well, they might be now that they get Adam Fantilli. But Leo Carlsson is an intriguing prospect. He played everywhere this year. Played in the World Juniors, played at the World Hockey Championships. He played for his pro team in Sweden. He played for the junior team over there. So he's bounced around and played a ton. And he's got a good shot. He's got good vision. To me, if you're looking at the center ice position, and the first 4 picks were all centermen, Adam Fantilli would have been the better pick because I just look at him as a guy that's more NHL ready currently. And maybe that doesn't matter to Anaheim, which maybe it shouldn't. But they got Mason McTavish. They have Troy Terry on that team. They have Trevor Zegras. They have a young team in Anaheim. And I just looked at Fantilli as this machine that was hidden behind Connor Bedard at the World Juniors. But as the tournament wore on, he got better and better, and his role was augmented. He was put in positions to succeed. He was put on the penalty kill. He hit, he forechecked, and he just did what was necessary to win. But then after winning the gold medal, where he had a secondary role, he goes back to Michigan, and he has the most points of any player after New Year's in the entire NCAA as a freshman. And he wins the Hobey Baker Award for Michigan. He had a phenomenal season. And then he played for Canada at the World Hockey Championships, and he won a gold medal there. So what a year. 2 gold medals, and he made the Frozen Four, and he wins the Hobey Baker. It's hard to make your resume much better than what Adam Fantilli did. But to me, he's a center with size, with pace, with aggression. And it's odd, he goes to Columbus, and I think he's a little more fiery Rick Nash. When Rick Nash was drafted, Rick Nash was highly touted. Highly touted. And he had a really good NHL career. He won a Rocket Richard, and he was great. He still works in the Columbus organization. But to me, Fantilli has Rick Nash's shot. The one thing about Rick that I think you would have liked more is a little more just, can you be pissed off? Can you get mad on the ice? Can you be a little more physical? And that's what I saw that in Fantilli in the tournament. He started to hit people, I think, as he got more and more upset that he was playing on the fourth line. He clearly viewed himself as a better talent and that he should be playing down there. And I'm sure seeing Connor Bedard being on the top line didn't help either. Seeing the guy who's going to go number 1 in your draft class play all these minutes and you're playing fourth line, he can barely get on the ice. But he got better and better. Now, Leo Carlsson has a great shot. I think he'll be a really good prospect as well. To me, Fantilli should have been the pick for Anaheim. But for Anaheim, I don't know if they want Leo Carlsson to play in the NHL right away. I don't know if it's a great idea for him to play in the NHL right away because I don't think he's ready, quite frankly. McTavish went back and played another year of junior. Seager's played a full year of NCAA. A lot of their players don't play right away in the NHL. And they're going through this weird transformation of a team where John Gibson is still on the team. I don't think he wants to be on the team, but he's there currently. Reports yesterday where they weren't going to give Maxime Comtois a qualifying offer, so he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Now they're picking second, but they can only be so bad for so long. But Drysdale will come back healthy, another young player. They have Frank Vatrano, Cam Fowler. They signed Ryan Strome last offseason. Lukasz Dostal, a young goaltender. They hope that can continue to get better. It's still not a team, in my opinion, that's close to being a winner. So if I was running business there, if Leo Carlsson wants to play another year in Sweden, I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no because they hired a first-time head coach from the American League. I still think they view themselves as a ways away, which they should. It's a good view of themselves. And to me, Fantilli, he played his year of college hockey and he won the Hobey Baker. To me, he's playing in the NHL next year. I don't think he wants to go back to college. Because what are you going to do? Go back and win another Hobey Baker? You can try to win the national championship. You lost that in the Final Four. But I don't think that's a real ambition. Columbus, we've talked about Columbus. What is Columbus doing? We're still perplexed. They're signing players left and right. They're bringing in Severson from New Jersey. They've hired Mike Babcock. It was announced yesterday it's going to be official Saturday, 2 years, $8 million. Gaudreau, they have Laine. So Columbus is trying to be competitive. They're trying to be a team that wins right away. So they should play. They should play Fantilli. But they got Kent Johnson. Marchenko's a fun player. Sillinger's young. Need to hope he can produce. Bemstrom. Gaudreau. What this Might be a whole lot to ask, but to me, Fantilli becomes their number one center. Because Boone Jenner is not a number one center. You could argue he's not a number two. But you look, they got Werenski, Severson, Provorov, Peak, Boquist, and Gudbranson on the back end. It's a good defense core. Merzlikins in net. So Fantilli's going to play. They're bringing in Babcock for 2 years because they clearly believe that they can be a team that makes a jump this year in a weak Metropolitan Division. And for Columbus, they had the third pick. They didn't have to move up, and I think they get the player that they wanted. Nobody's getting Bedard. Any team past one that says, well, we couldn't move up to get Bedard, that's fool's gold. You're not going to get him. No, Chicago's not trading the pick. But for Columbus, to not have to move up to 2 and to just sit there and to get Adam Fantilli, that's a perfect world. You don't have to give up any assets, and you get the second best player in the draft, in my opinion. And he'll be on your team next year. That's a win. That's a huge win. Now, the thing for Columbus is measure expectations. He's going to be your number one center, yes, but he hasn't played an NHL game yet. So you need to just pull back the reins a bit on the expectations, the points, how many minutes he's going to play. But I'm looking at Columbus's team. I think they're going to be fun because they're young. They don't know any better. Kent Johnson's going into his second year. Had a decent rookie year. I think he expected more. I still have faith in the guy. I think he's a really good player. Marchenko is an elite goal scorer. He can shoot the puck. That's all we know. Bemstrom, fun. Sillinger, heading into his junior year, need to see some production. Eric Robinson's one of the fastest players in the NHL. Sean Corrali's a perfect fourth-line center. You have Gaudreau, Laine, who want to win in Columbus. Werenski's a stud. Acquire Provorov. So, I think Columbus is thrilled today that they end up with Fantilli, and they just sit there at 3 and they get him, which I would be too. But Leo Carlsson is a good prospect. It just stunned me that Anaheim took him. So that brought us to 4. San Jose took Will Smith from the U.S. National Development Program. He's another center. The first 4 picks were center icemen. Again, Will Smith's a good player, had a really good year playing down there. U.S. National Development Program has produced some elite talent, no doubt about it. It's one of the best ways to get to the NHL, to get drafted, is to play for the U.S. National Development Program. You could argue it's a better route than playing junior. Because you get picked high and you're normally, a lot of these guys turn out to be really good prospects and be good players in the National Hockey League. It's not who I would have taken. I would have taken Michkov. We'll get to that in a second. But San Jose would have made sense for Michkov because they're nowhere close. They need to trade Erik Karlsson. They need to move money out. They're not trying to be good anytime soon. But they decided to go with Will Smith. That brings us to pick number 5, the Montreal Canadiens. There were rumors that they were going to trade the pick. But it was about 30 minutes before, and Ken Hughes said, no, we're gonna keep it. We like this prospect. Now, looking back at this, there were no trades last night in the draft, just teams moving up. It was the first time there wasn't a trade in the first round since 2007. That was boring. I thought we'd see at least a couple, at least towards the end of the first round, where multiple teams had 3 picks in the first round. That's a lot. But Montreal selected David Rickenbacker, defenseman from Austria. I mentioned yesterday on the pod that I think he has the most upside of any player in the draft. I think he's already a really good talent. But to me, with his size, with his skating, he's got a good shot. I like David Rickenbacker a lot. He impressed me when I seen him play live. He's got good structure to his game. He's got great hockey IQ. So on the surface, I love the pick because I like the player a lot. However, I don't like Montreal taking him. Here's why. Montreal dressed 5 rookie defensemen last year. 5 rookie defensemen. Jordan Harris, Caden Gooley. I'm going to miss some of them. But I believe the number was 5. I'm going to look that up just to make sure I'm correct because I'm like 95% sure I'm right. But I want to be 100% that I'm right because I don't want to tell you guys incorrect information. But I think they dressed 5 rookies. So the defense, here it is. Justin Barron was a rookie. There's 1. Caden Gooley, rookie. Jordan Harris, rookie. Kovacic, rookie. Zurbach was a rookie. And there was one more. That's positive. Nicholas Bodine was a rookie. So there's your 6. 5 rookie defensemen. So why are you taking another defenseman? Why was that the selection? I get it. You don't want to take Michkov because Montreal believes that they're closer to being competitive than most. I don't blame them for that opinion. I said before, I didn't think Montreal needed a total rebuild. You look at this team, they just added Alex Newhook. They have Suzuki. They kept Sean Monahan, Kirby Doc. Their center ice position is pretty, and they also have Jake Evans, who's the Swiss Army knife. Hoffman, Slafkovsky, who was taken first overall last year, who people don't remember because he had an injury-plagued year. I still like him. Josh Anderson, Armia, Caulfield, Gallagher. Well, hopefully they can move. So they have a decent team. Are they better than Toronto? No. Are they better than... I would argue that the Buffalo Sabres and Ottawa Senators are ahead of Montreal, but they clearly view themselves something different. I think Rickenbacker would have been great for a lot of teams. I just don't like the fit in Montreal. I would have taken a forward. If you don't want to take Michkov, Ryan Leonard, who went 8th to the Washington Capitals, a center iceman, was sitting there. Dalibor Dvorsky was sitting there. But I think they took the player with the most upside, the player they think that can be the greatest potentially at the next level. Slafkovsky was a risky pick to some. Montreal took him. I still think with his size and the way he moves for his size, he can be a great NHL player. To me, Rickenbacker would have been better suited on another team. There's a logjam of defense in Montreal with so many prospects that they have already. So I love the player, but I would have preferred him on a different organization. And I think Montreal could have made a better selection at number 5 than going with another defenseman. But do they get a good... I can't criticize them all that much because they get a wanting defenseman. I think he's got a lot of room to get better. And getting top-notch defensemen are hard to come by, as we can see. In the postseason, there's nothing more valuable than a great defense core, and I would even argue it's more important than having an elite goaltender. Having defense that you trust that can log minutes, they're invaluable. But I just think Montreal could have made a better selection there and not taken a defense. 6th, Arizona, they took Dmitry Simashev. He was stunned. I think the whole world was stunned when he was taken that high. Defensemen go back to back. I'll tell you this. I mentioned this earlier. The suits were ugly in Arizona. The jerseys were ugly in Arizona. The rink is horrible. Getting drafted to Arizona is like getting drafted to Siberia. There's nothing appealing about it. It's honestly the best thing that's happened to Canadian markets, you could argue, is that Arizona is such a disaster. Because now Winnipeg, with its shitty weather, Calgary, cold weather, everything you'd hate about these certain locations, well, at least you're not in Arizona, where you're playing at a university rink in front of 4,500 people, and you don't know who the owner is, and you don't know if you're going to get your check cleared, but you got to go there. No wonder Salt Lake City's gaining momentum. To think how bad an organization has to be for Salt Lake City, Utah, to gain traction on getting an NHL team. Salt Lake City, where all they have to offer is darkness, jazz music, and Mormons. That's it. But the Arizona, with its sunshine and golf and old people, snowbirds. No, we hate the Heat that much. We hate this organization. The Heat we don't even think about it because this organization is so shit. It's so bad, this organization, that we will stay over here in misery, freezing our ass off for 6 to 7 months a year in darkness, going to church every other day, and we'll stay here instead of going over there. Wow. Do you have to be some level of incompetent to get to that level? Now, I go play at the Mullet. I play at the Mullet Arena because weather trumps arenas. If I know my check clear, which I would still be a little cautious about that, but the NHL team's kind of controlling it. So I'm going to get my check. But you see these kids, they're not excited to go to Arizona. They're like, oh my God, I have to go to Arizona? This is where I'm stuck? This is where I have to be for a period of time? Oy vey. It's sad. It's an eyesore of an organization. An eyesore. Their top prospect said, I will go back to play at the University of Minnesota because I don't trust this team. This guy is going back to Arizona. So this guy's going back to Minnesota instead of playing in Arizona in the heat. I'll go back to Minnesota, live in dorms, and freeze my ass off instead of going to play here. Imagine that. I was just nominated for the Hobie Baker. What I got left to prove? I don't know, but I don't want to be here. That's the crux of it. I don't want to be here anymore. I will not sign in Arizona. That's the Coyotes organization. That's what they're doing. Gary Bettman loves the team and he keeps them there. But come on. It's really, Logan Cooley goes back to school. Nathan Smith still plays at Minnesota State University. He doesn't want to be there. It's something else what they're doing in Arizona. But you see these kids and it's sad because they're like, oh my God, I have to go to Arizona. And I'll tell you, I was excited, and I never use that word because I hate it. I was happy for Matvei Michkov because I was worried he was going to end up in Arizona. But he doesn't go 4. They take Will Smith. Montreal takes Rickenbacker. Arizona takes Dmitry Simashev. Philadelphia is up at 7, and they select Matvei Michkov. Finally, the slide is over, and the Russian comes off the board. They got the steal of the draft. Philly's in complete rebuild mode. They're trading players off the roster. Kevin Hayes, see you later. Trying to move Ivan Provorov is already gone. They're going to try to move Carter Hart. Just Travis Konechny moving a deal. Philly's an active bunch. I think we could see them do some stuff today. I think there will be trades today on the draft floor, not just involving picks and teams moving up, but players moving as well. But Matvei Michkov, he might have to play 2 to 3 more years in the KHL. And Danny Briere said, well, if he does, then we'll wait. And that's the perfect answer. Because you can't teach talent. And this kid has all the talent in the world. He's got a great shot. And he was right behind Connor Bedard just a year and a half ago. But now he goes number 7. And it wasn't because his play dipped or because his talent isn't there anymore. Factors out of his control have hurt him. But he goes to Philly. Philly will rebuild. Philly will try to build a contender when, like Kaprizov, when he came over, Minnesota was a playoff team again. They vaulted themselves back into the discussion. I think that's Philly's plan right now. We're going to be on the struggle bus for a few years. We've had a team that refused to rebuild for a long time, and we paid for it by being mediocre or just missing the playoffs by 5 to 6 points, which is the worst position you can be in any pro sport. But we'll stink for a while. We'll get some more prospects, and when we're ready to compete, Matvei Michkov will come over from Russia and join our group. It's a perfect situation. Now, I'll tell you, I was shocked Washington was at 8. To me, it's surprising them they didn't leapfrog Philly. They didn't get into the 6th pick via Arizona and take Michkov because I thought they would have liked the Russian. Would have added him. I mean, that's what they do best is draft really good Russian prospects. Ovi at the top of the bill. But there were no trades in the first round. No teams moving up, no teams trading out. It was perplexing, actually. But I'm happy Michkov did not go to Arizona because just nobody wants to be there. Nobody should be subjected to that. Washington took Ryan Leonard, the center, with the next pick. He went to Washington. Detroit took Nate Danielson, the center from out of Brandon. A lot of WHL talent went last night in the draft. So they take him at 9. That brought us to St. Louis at 10. They take Dalibor Dvorsky, who I talked about yesterday. He's a Slovak. He's a center that I think can have a lot of upside if he can break out of his shell. He's a player that has a great shot. I think he's got good hockey IQ. He played, obviously, last year at the World Juniors at 17. And I'm looking forward to watching him the next 2 years where he'll be older to see if he does more, if he's willing to take more chances. But to me, St. Louis made a good pick. He's a project. But to me, he is top 10 worthy because his talent is there. You can see it when you watch him play. But just breaking him out of that shell a little bit. You want him to be fundamentally sound. You want him to be a two-way center and be great at it. But can you bust out of it a little bit more and have some more skill? Use your hockey IQ. I think he's going to be a physical kid. But I like him, Dalibor Dvorsky. Vancouver took Tom Wallander, a defenseman from Sweden. Zach Benson went to Buffalo at 13. I like that pick. Had a really good year in the WHL. Pittsburgh took Braden Yeager. This was funny, actually. I think I read 5 mock drafts yesterday, and they all had Pittsburgh taking Braden Yeager. And a few times it was written, this is a Kyle Dubas just 101 selection. Not that big of a player, centerman with skill. I mean, that fit the bill. It fit the bill for Kyle Dubas to take Braden Yeager. He is an intriguing prospect. He had a very good season. He's not that big, so that's the big concern with him. But he can score. He was scored with the best of them in the WHL. So he's got a ton of talent. Matthew Wood goes to Nashville. David Poyle making his last first-round selection as GM with Barry Trotz taking over, effective Saturday. Calgary takes Samuel Honzek. That brings us to Detroit, where this player dropped a lot for me. And Detroit gets Axel Sandin Pellikka at 17. That's a steal, in my opinion. I thought Detroit was going to take him at number 9 because they love drafting Swedish defensemen. They have a couple in their prospect pool already, Simon Edvinsson, and they also got, obviously, Mo Seider, who's from Germany. But that's something we see, something Detroit does better than most is draft international players. International prospects, and they come over and they're really good. Outside of Philip Zadina, who's on the trade block currently, that was a miss for the Red Wings. To me, they're great at finding international talent. Simon Edmundsson's playing in Grand Rapids. William Launders, another Swedish defenseman. Marco Kasper, they took last year from Austria. He's got a big upside. They have Jarrett McIsaac, who used to play for the, obviously, Moncton Wildcats and the Halifax Mooseheads. He was a pick for them. Carter Mazer, a player I like a lot he's an American, a lot of upside. So they have a lot. To me, I trust Steve Yzerman in drafting international prospects better than anyone. Being at these World Junior events the last number of years, I don't think I've seen more scouts by any team more than Detroit. Chris Draper's running the show there. You see Sean Horkoff. They have a number of former NHLers. They always seemingly see 5 to 6 guys at every game. And they're scouting. And Sandin Pellikka was obviously playing at the World Juniors. He's got a great shot. He skates extremely well. And to me, it's shocking that he dipped because he was the 4th defenseman taken, and Wallander and Simashev going before him were surprises. But for Detroit to get to take Danielson at 9 and then to not trade up, stay in their position, and just swoop in and take Sandin Pellikka at 17, hell of a night for them, in my opinion. Just to sit there and get a player that I think they would have liked at 9. But they clearly believe Nate Danielson they couldn't risk. He would have been taken, seeing Dvorsky come off the board and Yeager and Matthew Wood. I don't think he would have been there. So they get the center that they covet, and to me, they get the defenseman that they wanted as well. So good draft night, another good draft night for Steve Yzerman. Colby Barlow goes to the Winnipeg Jets. Oliver Moore is the second pick of the first round from the Chicago Blackhawks. Seattle takes Edouard Saleh from Czechia for 20th, a really good value pick. He had his ups and downs at the World Juniors, but he was part of that team that got to the gold medal game. You saw some good things from him, a two-way player that plays with toughness, battled, and they wouldn't have got to the gold medal game without his contributions. Oliver Bonk goes to Philadelphia, son of Radek Bonk. Good story there. Played for the London Knights, big kid, a lot of upside. Gabriel Perreault goes 23rd to New York, son of Yannick Perreault. So a lot of former NHLers going. This is where 25, St. Louis takes Otto Stenberg. The pick is what it is. The more interesting thing for me is St. Louis last night had 3 picks in the first round. I'm shocked they didn't trade them. Didn't trade at least one. Why do they need 3 picks in the first round is my thought. St. Louis wants to compete. They want to win. And they had a brutal season last year, but they don't want that to continue. They acquire Kevin Hayes. They're trying to move out Torrey Krug to get a blockbuster to replace him with Sanheim. They're being aggressive, Doug Armstrong. But you have 3 picks in the first round. Yes, it's nice to have a prospect pool and you want to stock it up. So you get Dalibor Dvorsky. And then you select Otto Stenberg. But you pick Stenberg at 25, then you have another pick at 29, and you take Lindstein. Why aren't you trading one of those selections either for players or for draft capital on day 2 that you then can flip into into players that can play on your team currently? That would have been the play for me. That's a team with 3 picks in the first round that I say, okay, wouldn't that have better served a team like San Jose who had 2? Wouldn't that have been better for San Jose if they had 3 picks instead of you because they're not going to be competitive next year? Wouldn't that have been better for Montreal? For Philly? They could have used another first-round pick. Arizona? Nashville? I get you want to stock up your prospect pool. I understand that. But you're trying to win now. You have Robert Thomas. You have Colton Parayko. You have a team that had a bad year. No doubt about it. Yes, it was awful. But you still look at your team and you go, well, we got a pretty decent group here. Maybe Zach Dean can play in the NHL next year. We acquired Kevin Hayes. Jordan Kyrou's awesome. Braden Shen's still a good player. We got Rob Thomas. Sammy Blais, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Saad, Verana. I'm not saying it's an elite. Pardon me. An elite team. But you're competing for a playoff spot. And I think St. Louis will try to make some moves here. When it comes to putting themselves in a position, if there's a trade available that makes sense, I think they'll do it. Teams out there that want to get rid of salary, they got good players. They've already tried to make a move with Philly. Konechny would fit really well in St. Louis. He fits the vibe of that team. I think he plays like Steve Ott. Better Steve Ott, obviously, but Steve Ott's an assistant coach on that team. I think they'd be a fun pair. See him coach Konechny. But just to take 3 first-round picks where I don't think Dvorsky's playing. I don't think any of these prospects are playing in the NHL next year. So if I'm Robert Thomas or if I'm Kyrou, Parayko, and I'm on St. Louis currently, and I'm like, well, we want to compete, and you use those 3 first-round picks to not improve the team, I'm a little peeved. Because those don't help me. I'm trying get us players that can help. Kevin Hayes is a helpful hand, yes, and you give up nothing for him. Yeah, great. Do more. Is Torrey Krug going to lead the team? Because that's awkward. He knows you don't want him on the team anymore. And you could use, you got Falk, we have Bortuzzo, Falk, Krug, Leddy, Parayko, Scandella. That is a top 6. But it's a lot of money on defense, and I think they need some more depth up front. Their left and right wingers could use some help. For the St. Louis Blues, to me, that's the biggest weakness, is their wings. One's off the board, and we'll get to that in a second. In Vegas, which hurts every team around the league, but would Patrick Kane go to St. Louis? I doubt it. Would you take a flyer on him? looking at the available players. A DeBrincat trade would work with St. Louis. I think Dallas is the perfect fit for Alex DeBrincat, but St. Louis would make sense too. Jason Zucker, maybe you kick tires on him and a winger. Do they spend big on Tyler Bertuzzi in St. Louis? Maybe. Connor Brown wouldn't hurt. JT Compher. So there are players available. I just think St. Louis taking 3 first-round selections where it's unlikely any of them play at the NHL level next year, I just don't understand it. You're trying to win. You're trying to be in a position to compete for the Stanley Cup. Those 3 first-rounders don't help you one bit. Because you didn't fire your coach. You didn't trade away any of your players. You're not signaling we are rebuilding. So you're clearly in, we're in competitive mode. We're going to try to win. So try to win. But Doug Armstrong made that decision. The Leafs take Easton Cohen. He was rated 57th, I believe, on most big boards. But they take a swing on him. They only had 1 pick in the first 5 rounds. So you got to make it count. They're hoping he has the most upside. And congratulations to Bradley Nadeau, who played in the BCHL last year for the Penticton Vs. He gets taken 30th by the Carolina Hurricanes. Awesome for him. His brother will be taken today. But he's from Madawaska, St. Francois de Madawaska, New Brunswick. And he had 113 points in 54 games for Penticton last year. And he had 35 points in 17 playoff games. You want to talk about growth. In his first year in the BCHL, he had 46 points in 49 games, and he jumps to 113. Jumped from 20 goals to 45, and 26 assists to 68. I know my friend Craig Eagles is very high on this kid, but he ends up going late in the first round. Always great to see a New Brunswick kid go that high. But his brother should go today. That's the high. Likely won't get out of the second round. So both brothers will be taken today. And so the second round starts quickly here. It starts in a little over half an hour. Here's some reading some notes. Detroit Red Wings set to have 3 straight picks at number 41 to 43, and Nashville Predators are consecutive picks at number 46 and 47. The Edmonton Oilers are scheduled to make their first pick of the draft at number 56. Edmonton is in without a pick until the 6th round. Noah Hannafin still on the radar today. And Craig Button said he expects some trades today. He expects some moves. Maybe it's Connor Hellebuck. Maybe that trade gets down today. That wouldn't surprise me. The second round is always interesting, 2nd to 7th rounds, because there's so many picks, so many guys that you expect to see. And I just want to look up, let me get this list for you that I saw that I thought was interesting. But as we enter day 2 of the NHL draft, obviously round 1 is over, but there's still a lot of great players available. Here's some of the names that didn't get taken last night. Gavin Brindley, who played at Michigan. He played for the United States at the World Junior Tournament. He's a small center iceman. He was, I believe, 26th or 27th. He didn't go in the overall rankings. He's only 5'8", so that could be the reason. You look at these guys that didn't get taken last night. 5'9", 5'9", 5'8", 5'10", and these guys were all rated in the top 30. Ethan Gauthier played in Sherbrooke. Watched him play this year. Good player, really good shot. He's in the top 10 of players still available. Etienne Morin, defenseman for the Moncton Wildcats. He should be taken in the second round today. Let's see. Trey Augustine, he played for the U.S. at the World Juniors. He was a good player, good goaltender. Let's see. Matthew Cataford played for the Halifax Mooseheads. Callan Lind had a great year for Red Deer. He'd be a player I'd take high. But yeah, Adam Gajan, who played for Chippewa in the United States Hockey League, he played at the World Juniors for Slovakia. So another goaltender that could be off the board here. But day 2, hopefully more trades, hopefully some action that we can chat about, which is always fun. But yeah, night 1 was good. Would have liked some trades. Would like to see some teams not take 3 first-rounders or 2 first-rounders and move out. But they went against what I thought would have been the smart decision. We'll see what transpires today. But before we do that, before we move off hockey, a couple things. It was late afternoon yesterday. The Vegas Golden Knights traded Riley Smith to the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 2024 third rounder. Obviously, Riley Smith has played in Vegas since the expansion. He was there all 6 years, just won the Stanley Cup, and was a good soldier for them. One of the best picks they had, honestly, where he played all the time. He turned out to be a great find. But Vegas is one of these smarter organizations because they have my thoughts on this is screw tribalism. There's no loyalty in pro sports. We're trying to win. The Vegas Golden Knights just won a Stanley Cup, and I truly believe at their core, they believe they can win another one. And every team believes that, but they're going to do their damnedest to win it again. So they trade Riley Smith to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gets some winger depth. I think Riley Smith is going to play with Sidney Crosby. I would try it to start the year. He's still a good player. He didn't have a great postseason, but it's a good gamble for Pittsburgh to get Riley Smith because he's 32 and he is a good player. He is a good player. And he's got a good, he's cap friendly. He makes 5.25, he makes $5 million for the next 2 seasons. So that's doable, and he gets to go compete in Pittsburgh. But Vegas got rid of Riley Smith, so then they could, in turn, they re-signed Ivan Barbashev to a 5-year, $25 million contract, keeping him under contract with the team till he's 31 years old, and keeping the best trade deadline acquisition this year in-house, and one of the best free agents off the market. If you have to get rid of Riley Smith to keep Ivan Barbashev, I'd do it all day, every day. Ivan Barbashev has a connection with Jack Eichel. He fit with Jonathan Marchessault. And I think they loved him in Vegas. He came in, he did exactly what he was asked, and he was better than they expected, I believe. 18 points in 22 playoff games. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He's a winner. And I don't want him on another team. I don't want teams around the league to have the ability to talk to him. You lock him up when you get the chance, and that's exactly what Kelly McCrimmon did. You are not getting to Saturday. Is Ivan Barbashev a $5 million player? You could argue no. But I will pay him the extra $1 million that he's worth because I know he's a fucking gamer in the big moments. I don't want St. Louis. I don't want Toronto, New Jersey these teams that want to win to have the opportunity to get him. We just won with this player. Every team around the league saw his impact. You're not getting him. We're going to keep him. I think Vegas wants to keep Adin Hill. I think they want to try to re-sign him, see if they can keep him as a Vegas Golden Knight. I don't think it's paramount. I think it was more important to keep Barbashev. And Riley Smith has to go, then Riley Smith has to go. But think he was there since day one. You love him, this, that, and everything. But that's the business. Vegas runs their team like a business. They run their team like the Mafia, like the Sopranos, like the Godfather. You're great until you're not anymore. You're useful until I'm done with you. And then I take you and I put you in the trunk of my car and I stab you. Like in Goodfellas. But that's how the business should be run. Riley Smith gets to go to an old team where he's an older player and he gets to play with the old folks home in Pittsburgh. Great. Good for him. He's 32. He just won a ring. And he'll put up better numbers than he did this year because he'll play with Sidney Crosby. So it's a win-win. But Vegas keeps their cup window open longer because they dump $5 million worth of salary and they replace it with $5 million worth of salary on a better player that's 6 years younger. Sounds like a victory to me. It's just smart business. It's a good piece of work by Kelly McCrimmon. That's not an easy guy to keep. You get him off the free agent market, you don't want any other team to chat with him? Ugh. Any team could have had him at the trade deadline for a third rounder. For a third rounder, you could have had him. But no, let's do other things. Let's get all these other players, and then Vegas can just pick him up in the middle of a day for nothing. And he's more important than any other player that was acquired. But I knew he'd be that important. And my good pal, Brent, shout out, he knew as well. We see the value in these players. While others take an old centerman or take a winger with bite, sure. But if you can get a gem for a third round pick, why not? No, let's not get him, okay. Oh, NHL, you amuse me with your stupidity. Good on Vegas. Also yesterday, the New Jersey Devils re-signed Timo Meier. He's in Jersey for 8 years, $70.4 million deal. That's $8.8 million per season. It's a lot of money, but I'll say I thought it was going to be more. I thought Timo Meier would be making $10 million bucks. Because I just thought that's where the financials are in the NHL. I thought he'd be a $10 million player. He's had a really good career. He's been productive every year, basically. He's been in the NHL. And I really like him. He's a playoff guy. He plays hard. And he's 26. So you get him for 8 years, that's 34. I don't love 8-year deals. But he doesn't have a no trade or a no move. So that's a positive. I think it's a contract that as salaries rise, he will be more attractive. And New Jersey wants to win now. I mentioned yesterday, they're a team that will be in Stanley Cup contention for another year with Toffoli, with Meier, with Hughes, with Dawson Mercer, with Luke Hughes on the back end. They're likely going to lose Ryan Graves in free agency because they can't afford him, and I think he's going to make good money in the open market. But you can't keep everybody. And I want to keep Timo Meier more than I want to keep Ryan Graves. They got the Swiss thing going on in New Jersey. All the Swiss players are grouping up together. Fine with that. I like the Devils. I do. I think they're a good team. They've gotten bigger. They need to continue to get bigger when it comes to just their girth and the way they play. But in that Metropolitan Division, it's too early to say currently because I need to see free agency and really dive into it. But they're still at the top of the heap. They lost to Carolina. To me, they've done a lot this offseason where they're going to be in a position to be better than Carolina next year because Carolina won't take the risks or won't spend the money that New Jersey will. Because they have a soft approach, and that's the way they do business. And it's successful to a fault, but it won't get you over the hump. We've been through this. But as I talk about this day 2, and Craig Button said in his hit, I was listening to SportsCenter this morning, he expects trades today. He expects things to happen on day 2 of the NHL draft. I'm going to predict that Connor Hellebuyck is a New Jersey Devil by the end of the day. That's my prediction. There are other teams that make sense, but to me, the Devils make the most sense because they're in win-now mode and they can pay them. They're paying all their players, and they can bring him in. Maybe it won't be New Jersey. There are other teams that make sense, but I have a feeling about the Devils that they know they need a good goaltender. They know they need a guy that can be a difference maker, and they've been picking around at the edges for too long. Their franchise has had the most success they ever had when they had a number 1, when they had Marty Brodeur. They had a bona fide number 1 who's one of the best goalies in the world, and yes, they had a great defensive team around him, but they had Marty Brodeur. Connor Hellebuyck is one of the best goalies in the world. If you can get him, go get him. And if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you already pulled off a great sign and trade. Could you do it again? Could you do it again? Where you get more in the deal because you pull off a sign and trade. Some would argue it makes the team look weaker. I disagree. I think it helps the team moving forward. Now, New Jersey traded away a lot of prospects to get Timo Meier. So you could argue, well, they're not as deep as they once were. True. But Nolan Foote's still 21. He's still got some prospect for sure. I wouldn't want to trade Simon Nemec, but if you could get Simon Nemec in a trade, I would love to. Yes, he didn't have a great experience at the World Juniors. Remember his defensive play and his actions after losing. Just his behavior to the fans. But he's a good, hell of a talent. I'm not trading Luke Hughes. But they do have prospects. They got 2 young defensemen that are under 20 years old. Zetterlund is going with Nolan Foote, Riley Walsh, another young defenseman, Tace Thompson. And maybe Winnipeg likes a player on their roster. Is there somebody that Tom Fitzgerald's willing to part with to get better? I'm just going to go through it. You could trade the rights to Miles Wood. Apparently, they're not going well in negotiations. Michael McLeod, potentially. Kevin Ball, big defenseman. Bastian's a good player. Boquist is a good player. So, there's there's something that can be done there. But that's my prediction for day 2. When it comes to a big trade, I think Connor Hellebuck will end the day as a New Jersey Devil. Congratulations to Domingo Germán for throwing the 24th no-hitter in Major League Baseball history last night. Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff from him. He allowed 10 earned runs last week. 10 earned runs to the Seattle Mariners, and in his next start, he throws a perfect game. He said after the start, his uncle passed away on Monday, so he had a heavy heart, and he goes out there and throws a perfect game. But it's so rare. 24 times. 24 times in Major League Baseball history. And he did it. And it's funny to see the people that have done it. So, just to go through them here. During baseball's modern era, 22 pitchers have thrown perfect games. Cy Young has done it. Addie Joss, Jim Bunning, Sandy Koufax, Catfish Hunter, Randy Johnson, Roy Halladay. So there's some big names. David Cohn, now working for the Mothership, once pitched a 19 strikeout game. Felix Hernandez, Dennis Martirez, Mark Burley, David Wells, Matt Cain, formerly of the San Francisco Giants, Dallas Braden. It was the first perfect game since 2012, which was King Felix Hernandez, who was pitching for the Seattle Mariners. But Germán retired all 27 straight batters with 9 strikeouts on 99 pitches. So, Germán became the 4th Yankee to throw a perfect game in first since David Cohn in 1999. So 4 of the 24 have been New York Yankees. Just pretty incredible. But 24 people in the history of baseball have thrown perfect games. And baseball's been around a long damn time. So that's a special thing. The first time in 11 years. First no-hitter this year as well, so he gets that. Just incredible. Incredible to see the emotion from the players. The Yankees haven't been having a great stretch. Aaron Judge is hurt. The team isn't hitting. Aaron Boone is incredibly frustrated. And they needed a night like that. They trounced Oakland 11-0, and they get a perfect game at the same time. And to go 9 innings, 99 pitches is incredible too. So that doesn't happen a lot either. But you see, he throws a perfect game. King Felix was a hell of a pitcher. But Clayton Kershaw hasn't thrown a perfect game in his career. You think one of the best pitcher of his generation. And sometimes it just doesn't happen for you. Sometimes it just, Kershaw's throwing a no-hitter. I think he might throw 1 or 2. But he's never thrown a perfect game. And he likely never will with his advanced age. And just how difficult it is. And, the way it's set up now for pitchers where they can't go more than 7 innings. And we'll wrap today with some UFC news. September 16th card is booked. It's going to be a fight night in Las Vegas, Mexican Independence Day. The main event is the women's flyweight rematch. Alexa Grasso will fight Valentina Shevchenko for the second time. Shevchenko will be looking to win back her belt. Grasso will be looking to defeat her for the second straight time. Also on the card announced a welterweight co-main, which is an awesome fight. The undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov will welcome Kelvin Gastelum back to the welterweight division. Gastelum, formerly number 1 contender at 185, now is at 170, and he will get to fight Shavkat, who is just a menace in the cage. And this one will be, I think it's going to be an awesome fight. These two guys both love to throw. They like to stand there and trade. Gastelum's fought the likes of Israel Adesanya. He nearly beat him. I could argue he should have beaten him if he was just had a little better fighter IQ at the time. But Shavkat has beat Jeff Neal. He's beat some of the best in the division. He's waiting for a big opportunity, and he gets it. He gets it with Gaslam. So this fight to me is really fun. Shavkat currently is 6th in the rankings. Gilbert Burns is an injury. Who knows when Chimaev is going to fight. Bilal is waiting for a title opportunity. So this fight does make the most sense. But it's fun. Nonetheless, a really exciting fight. And it sounds like a fun event. It's a fight night, not a pay-per-view. So this is going to be free for everybody. This card in mid-September in an arena, unlike this weekend where they'll be fighting at the Apex. Boo. But fun stuff. Good card. The UFC has been doing some really good booking lately. They got a summer full of really fun fights. Pay-per-view a week from Saturday. We got a UFC event this weekend, as I just mentioned, at the Apex. We'll talk about that tomorrow on the program. We'll recap the second round of the NHL draft, any trades, any big things that happen. We'll touch on it tomorrow. Talk about Major League Baseball heading into the weekend. A couple days away from Canada Day, so that's always a fun day at the Rogers Center, where the Red Sox will be in town. Wimbledon starts up. We'll preview that tomorrow, as well as that gets going on Monday. So enjoy day 2 of the NHL draft. Enjoy the coverage. And we'll be back tomorrow to break it all down as we head into the Canada Day long weekend. So enjoy your day. Until tomorrow, this is To The Point.